Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. So here we are, it's the half moon night, the first one of June. As probably most of you will know, it's usually the case that on the half moon, the day of the half moon, Luang Por Sumedho will give a talk at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Unfortunately, he's away at the moment. He's in Europe. He's visiting at least 2 monasteries in Europe. So the privilege of giving some reflections or trying to give some reflections falls to me. Now, June is in that period of time leading up to the Vassa, or what we call the Rains Retreat. And that begins on the 11th of July. So right now, in this period before the Rains Retreat, many monks, probably some nuns as well, are away. They're traveling, either they're seeing family, maybe they're on tudong, on long walks, maybe they're on some project or other, or some visit. It's their time of travel and coming and going. So that's why the numbers can seem very depleted at the moment in the Sangha. But come Asala Puja, which is the 10th of July, everyone will be back. They'll be coming back from their travels. And we enter the Vassa on the 11th, and apparently we'll have a very full house. So there'll be a lot of monks and nuns, a full house back for the Vassa. Now, the other aspect of June, of course, is that it's the month of the summer solstice. So this means the days are longer and the nights are shorter than at any other period of the year. So up until today, at least, we've had lots of sunshine, lots of brightness. You see around you all the foliage, the trees, the plants, the grass, absolutely burgeoning. And there's this feeling of energy in the air, energy and almost exuberance from nature. So it's, in a sense, it's the high point of the year. And of course, because it's such a good time in terms of weather and travel and so forth, many people are coming out to the monastery. So we're getting many, or large groups of lay people, particularly at the weekend, coming and filling up the sala. So we start to think, the sala isn't big enough. Anyway, tonight I thought what I'd try and talk about is a subject that is common to all of us, which is the body. I believe we all have bodies. Is there anyone here who doesn't? And I'm not going to talk about the body beautiful or the body not so beautiful, but the body. But when we start to contemplate bodies, from the, if you like, unspiritual angle, there are lots of preferences and emotions and attitudes come in, don't they? We love, or we are infatuated with, we're obsessed with certain bodies. We think they're absolutely wonderful, and then we're repelled and disgusted by other kinds of bodies. So I think about 200 years ago, the problem for poor people was they didn't have enough to eat. They weren't very well nourished. So a lot of people were thin, and they had sort of sallow complexions. And the people who had money or had sufficient substance, they were well fed. Nowadays, it's the reverse. Now we find that we have more than enough food, an abundance of food. And the problem now is obesity. People are either eating the wrong foods or eating too much or just sort of mindlessly getting lost in food and so forth. So obesity is the problem, and flesh is almost considered to be ugly. So we have this phenomenon of fat shaming. You should sort of ridicule fat people. Then we have the opposite phenomenon of people who shame the fat shamers, saying, this is a horrible thing to do. All bodies are beautiful, and we should respect all of them. But when we think of there is a reflection that monks and nuns do on the meal, on the bindabat, which goes something like this. We talk about the food not for fun, not for pleasure, not for fattening, not for beautification. And it's that aspect of fattening that might seem a bit peculiar to people. Why, in our day and age, we would think, would anyone want to fatten their body? But, in the past, probably fattening your body was what helped it to be more beautiful. So if you look at the sort of good-looking women of the late 19th century, they had a lot more flesh on them than we now consider, to be the apogee of beauty. So there was a song in the 30s, in the 1930s, which went like this. It said, "Keep young and beautiful if you want to be loved. Keep young and beautiful if you want to be loved." And I think there are some modern artists who've also done versions of this song. And it can probably sound very cynical to us, that song. But if you look at the original pictures from the 1930s film that it was in, it was actually quite sincere. It was sort of saying, this is what you can do, and to be young, stay young and beautiful, keep young and beautiful. So now we have, most people seem to be dissatisfied with their bodies one way or another. They don't like their bodies for one reason or another. And they want to change aspects of the body. So we have this massive billion-dollar industry on how you can improve your body. So it could be like to do with diets or food supplements, going without food or the right kind of diet, going to the gym if you're a man, but it can be for a woman, going to the beauty salon, changing the body one way or another so you can take off fat, you can build up muscle, you can take off hair, you can put on hair, you can change your shape, you can do all sorts of things to improve your appearance. And people give enormous amount of attention to this, and there are huge amounts of money invested in doing this. And then you come to the cosmetic trades. So there's things like tummy tucks, Botox, butt lifts, boob jobs, hair implants. It always amazed me that the Prime Minister of Italy, Silvio Berlusconi, spent so much money on his hair implants in a desperate attempt to stay young. There are all these cosmetic industries. It's big business and operations, some of which are quite dangerous, to make your body apparently better. And so people take enormous risks and they spend a lot of money on this. And even dentistry has been affected. So when I was younger, dentistry was about having the teeth that were healthy, to enable you to eat properly. But now it's about your smile. So you can have the most beautiful smile, the real you. So the dental surgery I go to is called Bennett's End Dental Surgery in Hemel. But now it's part of a group called Hemel Smile Studios. And there are pictures all over the place of, the right smile and how to get the right smile. So in my own case, I'm now at the stage of life where the body is less compliant and it complains a lot. So more pain, more things like rheumatism and stuff like that. Getting up and getting down is not so easy. Getting from A to B is not so easy. I'm slowing down, the energy's dissipating. It's that phase of life. So I find myself, say, coming up the stairs into the temple, and then a junior member of the Sangha holds the door for me, being very kind and patient, and I sort of waking my way up the stairs, and I say, I'm the slowest coach in the train. Anything to sort of... and that's not just about movement and agility, it's also about, things like hair has ceased to grow in the right places and wants to grow in the wrong places. So, for instance, I discovered that I had a hair growing on the bridge of my nose. And then there's another one at the front of the face, front of the cheek. So I keep my eye on those hairs. And of course, there's dozing off at this age, because you can't get to sleep at the right time, so you doze off at the wrong time. So all these things are connected with the body. And it's very different when you're young, isn't it? So just considering how things are when you're young. But I always think of one man I went to visit in hospital. I was told he was dying. His wife was there. He had cancer. His name was Anders. He was from Sweden. And, he had a little button there he used to push to help relieve the pain. And we knew he was on the way out. He knew he was on the way out. And he came up with this very interesting phrase. He said, it's a one-way ticket. So it's the same with the body. Your body is, past a certain stage, it's not going to get better. It's a one-way ticket. And another phrase that really sort of haunts me is about 20-something years ago, I was traveling on my way to New Zealand. I was in Western Australia at Ajahn Brahm's monastery for a while, and I had to sort of have an operation. I'd had a problem with my eye from flight, and so I had an operation on the eye. And so I was letting people down the road know that I'd be much later arriving in their monasteries. And I contacted the head monk in this monastery in New Zealand, Ajahn Suchino, and informed him, I think, by fax. And then he wrote back, he said, bodies, who'd have them? Bodies, who'd have them? So anyway, when we're young, first of all, there's the agility, the energy, the ability to move around more or less as we want. This is for most people, not everybody, of course. Some of us have real problems with the body, but you get used to the fact that you can move and you are athletic, or many people are athletic. It's that stage of life when you can be a sports hero. And of course, the society we live in praises or loves sports heroes. A lot of it is made of them. The body is better looking. You might not be so aware of it when you're young, but looking back on your photographs, it's pretty good looking. And then there's the senses, the gratification of the senses, which is very, when you're a child, things taste extraordinarily good It's not like a taste, it's a taste bomb. And you're discovering things. They're all new and fresh. The sights, the sounds, the smells. Smells can be very poignant or piquant, when you're young, can't they? They make a big impact on the mind. Sights, sounds, smells, new sights, new sounds make a very, very big impact on the heart and can be very exciting and very moving. So basically, even though we have our problems and our suffering when we're young, the body looks or feels pretty good. The whole thing looks pretty enticing. What's the problem? You're offered a package and you buy the package. So you hook onto the body, you identify with the body. Yes, this is great. And the body appears to be a source of pleasure. It's an instrument for pleasure. So you can have wonderful food and drink and, go all over the place and meet friends and the rest of it. So it's great. It's fantastic. Now, here we come to Ajahn Chah's simile. So he says, the body is a poisonous snake waiting for you down the path. The body is a poisonous snake waiting for you down the path. Because as you get older, you can't do the same things and you don't have the same sense of gratification. So tastes, yeah, they're nice, it's good, I've had it before, it's okay. Sights and sounds, you've seen them. Smells get a little bit duller. It's not the same magic has gone out of it. And then, so in the middle age, you try to do what you did as a young person, and it's difficult. In your old age, it's impossible. So this is why I think he described it as a poisonous snake waiting down the path for you. But once you've hooked on, or once you're sort of caught by the body, it's very difficult to let go. We identify with the body. It's us, we think. And that source of pleasure turns to the source of other things as we get older. So what are the Buddhist words on the body? Be interesting to think about that, contemplate the Buddha's words on the body. So I think I will come to that. But before that, I thought it might be interesting just to consider what the attitude is in other religions, one or two other religions. And I want to sort of add a kind of a disclaimer here. I haven't talked to members of those religions about this issue. So it's all based on reading. And I may have something wrong. Sometimes religions change their positions. So I want to sort of say that I'm open to correction. But first of all, Christianity. So Christianity says, apparently, that your body is a gift from God and you are made in the image of God. And the body will be resurrected at the time of the last judgment, and it will ascend with the soul into heaven. So the body should be valued or respected. It's a gift from God. In some Christian writings, I think it's compared to a temple even, or a vessel, a holy vessel. In Islam, again, it's a gift from Allah. This is a gift from God. You must respect it. You must value it, but you don't own it because it's come from God. It's God's gift, and you are the steward. So you have a stewardship over your body. So you're meant to look after it. And apparently in Islam, they don't like the idea of the body being dissected or the body being mutilated. And that is why many Muslims have a problem with autopsies and post-mortems. They don't like the idea of that. The body should be preserved or kept as it is. As far as I understand in Hinduism, Hinduism stresses that spirit and mind on the one hand and body on the other are completely separate. So the body in each lifetime is a vessel that carries the spirit or mind, or enables the spirit and mind to go through various experiences and to learn from them. And so the spirit or mind occupies the body, and then at the end of the lifetime moves on to another body. The body is a vessel. So these are quite interesting and radically different takes on the body to what the Buddha had to say. So what did the Buddha say? He compared the body to a mass of heaped up sores, a disease, a dart, a calamity, an ulcer, a cancer. Something that's held together and will fall apart any time. It's impermanent. It can't last. And then he also compared it to a fleck of foam. He said if a man witnesses a fleck of foam on the river Ganges and examines it with his eyes, he'll see there's nothing to that fleck of foam. It's empty, it's just passing by, there's nothing to it. The same with the body, nothing to it. It's empty. So he talked about the form is a mass of foam. Form is here is equivalent to the body. Feeling is but an airy bubble. Perception is a mirage. It's like a mirage. Formations are like a plantain tree. And consciousness is a magic show, just a conjuring trick. This is how he described what we call the five khandhas or the five aggregates. So anyway, form or body, a mass of foam or a fleck of foam. So these are quite striking images, aren't they? And perhaps for anyone who's new to the teaching could be quite shocking that their body should be compared to these things. But I think what the Buddha was trying to do was to wake us up. Sometimes he used these radically different kind of similes or metaphors to wake people up from their infatuation with the body, with life, and so forth, particularly with the body. So what about Ajahn Chah's take on the body? He talks about sankharas. So the body is another sankhara. Sankharas are formations or concoctions, things that come together and must inevitably, in the end, come apart. So most things, in fact, in these terms are sankharas. So the body has only, it's following its natural laws. It has to follow the laws of nature. It's been born, it grows up to a kind of fruition, it starts to go into decline, it has to fall apart. So he talks about kaya vayang, decline and dissolution of all conditioned phenomena. Decline and dissolution of all conditioned phenomena. And the body has no choice. It's a sankhara. It has to do this. It's the way of nature. So Luang Por Chah's similes are like this. He talks about a block of ice left out in the sun. Remember that in Thailand the sun is very hot. So this block of ice must melt. It has no other option. It has to melt. Or he talks about fruit hanging from trees. And once the fruit is ripe and the time is ready, then the fruit drops from the tree. It has no choice. That's how things are. Things follow their natural laws. But of course, we want or the other thing I should mention perhaps is Ajahn Suchito's comment, which is I found very memorable. He said once, if you've placed your bets or your money on the body. If you placed your bets or money on the body, you've backed a loser. But we want reliability, we want solidity, we want definition, and so we're desperately seeking to try and find this in the body, aren't we? So anything we can do to try and shore it up, keep it going, try to pretend to ourselves that it isn't changing, it isn't aging, it can continue for a long time the way it is. This is how we think and how we, we operate. So it seems to me it's rather like if you've got a wall that's crumbling, you're shoring up the wall, constantly shoring up the wall, and of course the wall keeps crumbling. It can't help but do that. It's in its nature to crumble. Now we can, find temporary expedients. We can find cosmetic ways of covering up aging and things going wrong and ugliness and so forth. We can do that for quite a while, and on top of that, we can probably delay. We probably can't reverse, but we can delay certain conditions that we don't want because of the miracle of modern medicine, which of course didn't exist in the time of the Buddha. So, things can be delayed. We can go on to machines that help us, or very high drugs, very expensive drugs, and we can slow things down a bit, but we can't reverse them. We just can't do it. We might want to, but we can't do it. The body, like all sankharas, has to follow its nature, its course in life. So there we are. We're stuck with this body the way it is. What can we do about this? What should we do about this? And I think the first thing we can do is look around us, and we'll see that it's the same for everyone else as well. All their bodies are aging, just like ours is. I remember going down to Chithurst on many occasions for a binda, some special event like a Vesak or special Tort Bapal they have there, and you go out into the garden with the wall round it, the walled garden, and you walk round the circle of faces, and everyone's putting rice in your bowl, and thinking, well, that one, he's got older or she's got older, and then realizing, I must be older as well, looking older as well. And that's happened on many occasions. So if you look around, you see, yes, everyone is aging just like I am. Their bodies are also in decline, just like mine. And if you look beyond the human realm into the animal realm, you'll see the same thing there. Every animal born is getting older, and then it has to pass away. And of course, usually animals have a much shorter lifespan than we do. And then look at the plants. All the plants in the end have to die as well, even the trees, even though some trees live for a long time. But at Christmas time, Ajahn Dhammanando usually leads a walk through parts of the local countryside, and he would always take us to an area where there was what they call the Harry Potter tree. So one of these big trees that were used in a Harry Potter film, and which was still very beautiful, and he would show people the Harry Potter tree. But eventually that collapsed. So when you go there now, it's just sort of a massive branches and broken trunks and so forth. So all these living plants, they have to pass away just like we do. So basically even though we might be having to get used to a much less pleasant lifestyle as we get older, we cling to life. Most of us want to live our life to a natural conclusion. And even though it may be uncomfortable or sad or tragic or whatever, we cling to life. But there are, of course, some people who don't want to do that. So for them, basically they're not having a good time at all. If you're having a good time, if you're having an enjoyable time, you don't want to end your life. But for some people, the suffering has become so much that they really want to end, they want out, they want to end their lives. And it could be physical suffering in the body, like we've been talking about, or it might be mental suffering that has become too much for them. Or it might be a combination of both those things. So there was a monk I was very fond of, a French monk who disrobed. He had, if you like, mental health problems, and there were mental health problems. There's a history in his family of mental health problems. And he was in the mental health system in France, and they seemed to be making some progress with him. But eventually it all became too much for him. So this is still something that affects me very much, but he got over the fence of a TGV line and threw himself under a train. And then there are people now queuing who want some form of euthanasia. So euthanasia is the big topic of the day in Britain, and in the Isle of Man. Apparently they've already passed some kind of law saying that euthanasia is now legal, and undoubtedly something similar will happen here. And it seems to be going right across the Western world that euthanasia will be possible. You will be able to help people kill themselves legally, or at least under certain conditions, because it's still illegal at the moment. But what I find interesting is when we come to these very sensitive topics, quite painful topics, how we try to find a different term, a euphemism, some other term to distance ourselves from what's really going on. So in the lay life, in economics, I always remember being taught by my father that, you shouldn't print money. Money should be backed up with gold or whatever they back it up with. But if a bank prints money, then you're going to get inflation. If you get inflation, everybody's wages loses value. Everyone loses from that. But in recent years, they've decided it was very important to do this, to print money. So they invented a new term for that. It's called quantitative easing, QE, quantitative easing. So under that term, it doesn't sound so bad. You can go ahead and do it. Or in the field of warfare, there are some countries, I won't mention the name, but anyway, there's a country that is particularly good at killing its own soldiers and some of the soldiers of its allies. So we would killing your own side, basically. But they just invented a new term. It was called collateral damage. Collateral damage distances you from what's actually going on. You don't have to worry so much about it. That was collateral damage. That's all. And so the same too with this thing about euthanasia. So the current term is assisted dying. And we talk about assisted dying and people being able to die with dignity. And no doubt there are arguments for this. But I would suggest that assisted dying is a misnomer. The real term should be assisted suicide. This is a very tricky area for monks. And will no doubt be a challenging area for us to face as the society moves into this new phase. So anyway, what do we do from a consumerist perspective in relation to this body and all its problems and its decline and dissolution? Well, I think as a consumer, we think about trading it in for something else if we possibly can. Getting new parts for the body, so we get new knees, new hips, maybe a new heart or some other organ of the body. That's one way we try to handle the problem of the body's decline and keep the thing alive. And the other aspect is of the consumerist approach is, well, maybe we can defer death. Maybe we can postpone death. And again in the Western press and Western thinking, somebody comes up with this, how can we, we can actually do this. We can defer death. We can put death off. And the latest one is Jeff Bezos. I think he's set up a little committee or some kind of commission to look into how death can be, if not cured, at least, put off for a while. This is the consumerist approach, in my view. So what about Ajahn Chah's approach, which is so different to the body? Ajahn Chah, what he proposes, what he suggests is that we calm the mind down, concentrate the mind, and look into the nature of the body, and look into the nature of all sankharas. And if we can uncover the true nature of sankharas, we will begin to have some wisdom. So investigating these things, uncovering their nature, understanding them as they really are, is the key to wisdom and then to more ease of heart. Because if we can do that, we'll begin to recognize that there is only one permanent thing, which is that there is a constant state of impermanence. Everything is constantly changing. In samsara, in this realm of conditioned phenomena, nothing stays the same. It's all moving along. One writer described it at time as the omnipotent policeman that moves things forward. And nothing can hold it back. Time and tide wait for no man, right? So everything is moving and changing all the time. And if we can start to understand this and to see into the true nature of sankharas, then we will begin to have more ease of heart. It is wisdom that liberates people. So this thing about changing, everything changing, all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. This is one of the reflections that we have in our chanting book. And the Buddha himself came up with this particular teaching. He said, the body is in prison, but the mind doesn't have to be in prison with it. The body must inevitably decline and go its particular way, but the mind does not have to be in the same prison. And there's a rather interesting example of that. Maybe a decade or two back, there was a book published called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. And this was by a Frenchman who originally was editor of Elle magazine. In Paris, he had a very fashionable life. He was the editor of a very smart magazine. And then he had some kind of stroke or some kind of disaster occurred. And he became, if you like, quotation marks, a vegetable. He couldn't move at all. So he had to be fed and bathed and all the rest of it in some care home or some hospital. I'm not exactly sure where. But what they did find out was that this guy could move his eyelids. And eventually they were able to there was a woman there with letters of the alphabet, and he would signal with his eyelids the letter he wanted chosen. And from that interaction with this woman, he was able to write things. So he's writing articles, and then he was writing eventually this book, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. So his body was the diving bell, sunk down in the sea, but there was this butterfly, which is his mind. His mind was still working, and he wrote this brilliant book. And you can read it if you ever, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. So we come back to the issue of practice and what is what is recommended in practice in relation to the body. And I have to admit here that I've not been particularly successful, lots of failure really in my own experience, but I'll talk about it. I think it's very useful to talk about. And the first is that as a newly ordained monk, you're offered a particular subject or 5 subjects for contemplation. Those subjects are hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. So the upajjhaya, that's the person who gives you the upasampada, reads this out to you, and then back in the reverse order, skin, teeth, nails, the 2 kinds of hair. So I tried to take this on board. It seemed to be a bit sort of irrelevant, really. Why does it have to be 2 kinds of hair? Why not just one hair, kind of hair? And these were the kind of thoughts in my mind. And then why doesn't it include eyes? Because eyes are part of the appearance, aren't they, of the body? And so lots of quibbling in my mind. But as I've gotten older, I've appreciated more and more that these 5 subjects are in fact taking on, this is the appearance of human beings. This is the appearance of the body. This is what we fall for and we become infatuated with. The skin, the hair, the teeth, the nails. These are very, very important to contemplate. And of course, if we do contemplate them, we start to notice that, of course, they age. So the skin isn't so attractive, is it? Or the nails. The teeth either become discolored or they drop out. The hair changes color or that drops out, and so on and so forth. The normal signs of aging. But this is what we're supposed to contemplate. So we start to see into the appearance of the body and then the reality of what's going on. Now, the other aspect that we're advised to look into is what's called asubha, or the unbeautiful aspects of the body, the less beautiful aspects of the body. In other words, there's this phrase, the body in the body, looking inside the body at the internal contents beneath the skin. And by the way, there was a famous monk, Ajahn Dhammanando, who wrote various books. He talked about these 5 subjects for contemplation. And he said, well, these are in fact, although they're so attractive to us and interesting, they are in fact dead matter. The skin, the surface skin is dead. That's why, otherwise it would be too painful to touch anything. The living skin is beneath the surface skin. The teeth are dead. They've grown already. The nails are dead, except for the quick of the nail. And the hair that's grown already is dead, but the growing bit at the root of it that's the alive bit. So he said all these things are in fact dead already. But these are the alluring and interesting aspects of the body that we easily fall for. Anyway, to come to the asubha practice, so we have the recollection of the 32 parts. And I think for myself anyway, this isn't easy. This is not the most attractive kind of contemplation or meditation for me to get into. I much prefer to go for loving kindness or some more sort of uplifting aspect. But this is also a very important part of practice. It's one of the more neglected parts of practice, I think, in the West, because we don't find it easy. And it's perhaps no surprise that we don't chant the 32 parts very often. We sometimes do. We did the other day, but this is not the most popular of the chants. Anyway, if we start looking inside the body, beneath the skin, we start to see solid things which make sense to us, like the bones, the ligaments, the nails, the teeth, things like that. Yes, I can relate to that as part of me, if you like. And then we've got the soft tissues and organs, the kidneys, the liver, the heart, the lungs. Yeah, this is part of me. Can relate to that as part of me, if you like. But then we come to the less pleasant aspects of the body. So they start to talk about undigested food. That's sitting there, isn't it? Excrement, urine, bile, phlegm, pus, mucus. Are these me? Looking at these fluids, is that me? So we can contemplate these 32 paths. The full list is in the chanting book if you're interested. And in fact, in Thailand, monks, presumably, I don't know if nuns go as well, but they are allowed to go and witness post-mortems or autopsies in hospitals. And I believe they go into the same room where the body is, where the corpse is, and they have to endure the smell and all the rest of it that comes out of the corpse, which can be quite overpowering. So another way of encountering the reality, the inner reality of the body, beneath the appearance. I remember in my first year as a monk, we were allowed to see a video about one of these autopsies. And the doctor or whoever it was holding up a bag of urine that this man had had in his body, and then he pierced it with a knife, and all this urine poured out. Apparently this man had been a drunkard, and he'd fallen in the canal and drowned. And so I didn't really expect myself to have the opportunity, because I haven't been a monk in Thailand, to witness an autopsy, but in fact I did in the end. So I was living for a while in Melbourne, in Victoria in Australia, and in Melbourne there are many Sri Lankan people, including many Sri Lankan doctors. So I was staying in a kind of centre there, and people would come and say, well, is there anything you would like, Bhante? Is there anything we can get you? So I just said to them, is there any chance of witnessing an autopsy? So they went to the hospital and inquired, and eventually the opportunity came up, and I went to see this autopsy in one of the hospitals in Melbourne. And they take you into a small room with a glass window, so you're not in the same room with the corpse. So I was in the small room with somebody beside me, and I looked through the glass window, and there were 2 trolleys and 2 corpses. Both of them were men. And one of the men, it was quite extraordinary, had extremely long toenails. They kind of projected out, I don't know how far, it was extraordinary how far his toenails had grown. And then after a while, the technicians or whoever they were arrived, and they started to work on the bodies. And when you first see them cutting into a body, it is very shocking. That's a registered shock. And apparently they used to have new recruits to the police force in Melbourne used to come and witness these autopsies on a regular basis. Maybe you'd have 20 policemen, young policemen in that room witnessing the autopsy, and maybe something like 5 or 6 of them would faint and would have to be taken out of the room and laid in the corridor outside on a regular basis. So I think they discontinued that practice. They don't have the young police people coming to see the autopsies anymore. Anyway, you see the autopsy. They cut open the stomach. They pull out like sausages, and yeah, they do. And then all the different organs. They have a kind of circular saw they cut open the skull with, and they pull out the brain. They take the brain and put it on a kind of wooden breadboard, and they cut it up like this to see what's going on in the brain, because it tells you if there was a stroke or not. They can read the signs for a stroke. And then when they finish the work, all these organs are put back into a black plastic bag. The black plastic bag is put back into the the stomach, and then they sew it up. And then the top of the skull is fitted back onto the skull, and then they somehow seal that, and they try and sort of make it more or less roughly as it was before. Anyway, I didn't faint. So some of these practices, well, the descriptions that the Buddha gives of what the body is, some of the practices that we are encouraged to undertake may seem very extreme to certain people, but the whole point is that we are we are enchanted or infatuated with bodies, with our own bodies or with the bodies of other people. And so these are ways of trying to break that enchantment. It's like we're held in a garden of enchantment. And what we're doing with these practices is beginning to loosen the bonds of attachment. And Ajahn Chah talks about, when you see into the real nature of the body, then this sense of nibbida arises, disenchantment. You begin to see how bodies are, how they must inevitably be, and they become wearisome and pitiful. And this sense of disenchantment sets in. You're no longer believing that bodies are about, happy endings and all the rest of it, and joy and pleasure. And it just, you see them for what they are, and you start to let go. So the Buddha is like, if you imagine that we're held in a kind of garden of enchantment with regard to bodies, the Buddha is beckoning us to come out and to wake up to the reality. So these practices are about getting a rounder picture of what bodies are about. But what the Buddha stressed above all was that whatever state the body is in, whether it's in decline or not, you need to be at peace with that thing. You need to be at peace, understanding the conditions, being at peace with the conditions as they are, whatever the state of decline, is what his practice is about. Being at peace, being at ease with the body as it really is. So I think I would just finish by saying that this Dhamma and discipline may not be about making life perfect, but it is about letting go of illusion or shedding oneself of illusions. The practice is about shedding oneself of illusions. And these illusions are at the root of our real suffering. So I offer these thoughts for your consideration tonight. Sadhu, sadhu.